This is my new story. It follows you wherever you go. I hope you guys enjoy. I've been talking to this cute punk girl online for months. I eventually worked up the nerve to ask her to move in with me. This was 2008, and websites like MySpace were in full swing. We met on a site called vampirefreaks.com, which was basically MySpace for emos, punks, goths, and metalheads. I stood at the Greyhound station excited to meet my once online, now real-life girlfriend, and really hoping she was who she presented herself to be. The moment she stepped off the bus, I melted. She was incredibly beautiful. My insecurity took over immediately. I was overweight and kind of hated myself. And here was this badass, drop-dead gorgeous woman walking towards me with a big smile on her face. "Dwight?" she asked. I smiled back. "Yeah? It's me. Are you disappointed?" I asked reluctantly. She laughed. "Why would I be?" She wrapped her arms around me and I hugged her tight. I had always struggled with self-esteem. I was raised by my Southern Baptist grandparents in a pretty strict house. Style and music, let's just say I wasn't exactly cool. I had an older brother who was a punk rocker, and I lived with him for a little while, and he took me to Warped Tour one summer. Best summer of my life. But my grandparents hated it. So I ran away for a little while, came back, and I lived in this punk rock commune with my best friend Scott. Didn't really get along with everybody else who lived there, though. A lot of them were kind of bullies. That's when I started talking to Megan. Some of these guys weren't exactly great people. The moment that they saw Megan, they became jealous. They consistently made up stories in an attempt to break us apart. One of which consistently hit on her every single day. They probably would have succeeded in breaking us apart if Scott wasn't such a good friend and told me what they were doing. One day, Scott told me Dave's girlfriend, a guy who lived there, had done some voodoo shit on us. We didn't believe in that sort of thing, so we laughed it off. But that night, something happened. Our room was set up in the den, which opened directly into the dining room. Sometime early that morning, Megan shook me awake. "Do you see that?" she whispered. "See what?" I mumbled, still half asleep. She pointed toward the dining room table. Sitting there was a dark figure wearing a wide-brimmed Puritan-style hat. It turned towards us. It didn't have a face, but somehow I could feel it staring at me, but not staring at me. Into me. Into my soul. It made me feel angry for some reason. Like I just wanted to destroy everything around me. I looked away. "Go back to sleep," I told her. "It's not real." The truth was, I knew exactly what that thing was the moment I saw it. Demons are a lot like vampires. They can't come in unless they're invited. That voodoo shit Dave's girlfriend supposedly did, maybe wasn't such a joke after all. I had faith back then, but I just really didn't care about it. Even after that night, I convinced myself we'd just imagined what we saw. Not long afterward, we decided it was time to move out. My cousin John helped us get a place and got me a job working with him at a lawn maintenance company. The trailer was a complete dump, but it was our dump. While Megan was cleaning one day and moving things around, she stopped at the front door, taking some trash out, stared down the hallway. Then she froze. According to her, the hat man that we saw at Scott's house stepped out of the back bedroom with one long stride. It just stood there. arms hanging past his waist, abnormally large hands, smiling at her, watching her, the same way he had watched me. When I got home, I found her sitting at John's house with his wife Annie. I couldn't stay in that house alone, Dwight. Her eyes were wide with fear. I could feel that thing smiling at me. She wasn't blinking. It made me want to die. I mean, it wanted me to kill myself brutally. I knew she wasn't lying. I could hear the terror in her voice. That wasn't the end of it. She kept seeing shadows moving where nobody was standing. Then we found out she was pregnant with our son. Things got worse after that. Television would switch on and off by itself. Things would fly across the room. That wasn't even the worst of it. One night, Megan woke me from a dead sleep with a scream so loud I thought somebody was murdering her. Megan! What the fuck is going on? Wake up! I grabbed her shoulders and shook her. Her eyes snapped open. Then she burst into tears. She wrapped her arms around me, trembling, and I held her until morning. After that, I was fired for no call, no show at the lawn maintenance company. We couldn't afford rent. With nowhere else to go, we ended up moving in with Megan's mom and her stepdad in Birmingham, Alabama. We weren't there very long. Megan's mom and stepdad were raging alcoholics and flipped out over every little thing. We ended up staying at a friend's house for a little while before finally getting our first apartment at Cahaba Lakes. We were proud of that place. It didn't matter that we had no furniture and had to sleep on the floor. It was ours. We worked hard for it. We ended up getting a job at Books A Million, and Megan ended up working at Firehouse Subs. Every day she walked nearly a mile uphill to get there. Same with me. The difference is she was 9 months pregnant. I told you this girl was a badass. Money was always tight. For a while we practically lived off potatoes. The stress weighed heavily upon both of us as we started fighting constantly. We argued over everything, and I mean everything. It sounds ridiculous now, but one of the arguments were over spices not being alphabetized. I mean, that wasn't us. We never acted like that before. I know it sounds like I'm making excuses, but something felt off. The anger never seemed proportional to whatever it was we were arguing about. We couldn't afford a cell phone at the time, so we had a little landline, and one day Scott called to talk to me while I was at work. Megan answered and ended up talking to him since I wasn't home. In the middle of their conversation, a loud boom erupted from the closet. Immediately afterward, a deep, guttural growl came from that closet. Pets reacted instantly. They both began growling and hissing, staring at the closet door. Megan checked. Nothing there. Scott told her to ignore it. If you don't believe in it, it can't hurt you. He was wrong. The nightmares got worse after that. Much worse. I started losing time. I'd find myself doing things I couldn't remember. Hours would disappear from my day. One night we heard a knock at the door. I got up to answer it. At least that's what I thought I did. According to Megan, I walked in the kitchen and just stopped. I stood there staring into space, completely motionless. "Are you going to check the door?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied, and I just kept standing there, like a statue. What I remember is completely different. I remember walking into the living room and opening the front door. Standing there was a man in a black suit and a fedora. Without saying a word, he walked inside. He sat down on the couch and motioned me for me to join him. I sat, partly because I was shocked, mostly because he didn't have a face, just like the Hat Man in Florida. Where features should have been, there was only darkness. I opened my mouth to speak, but he cut me off. "You want to know what I want?" I nodded. "It's simple," he said. "I want your son." Instantly, rage surged through me. Before I could respond, he continued, "You can have more children, just not this one." He leaned forward. "Give him to me, and I'll leave you and Megan alone. Refuse, and I will decimate your lives." I stood there, and I pointed at the door, about ready to say, "Get out of my house." Again, he cut me off. "I'll see myself out." The faceless man rose from the couch. As he reached the doorway, he stopped and he turned. "See you soon." The next thing I knew, I woke up on the couch the following morning. When I told Megan what had happened, she looked horrified. "What the fuck do you mean that he wants our son?" I rubbed my face. Maybe it was just a nightmare. I mean, we've been under a lot of stress. I wanted to believe that desperately. But between the lack of sleep, missing time, increasing bizarre things happening around us, I just started to wonder if we were dealing with more than one entity. One seemed obsessed with Megan. That thing in the trailer, the Hat Man, this faceless visitor. Could they all be the same thing? One night, Megan woke up to the sensation of fingernails dragging slowly across her neck. She opened her eyes. A black hand rested against her skin. "Leave my baby alone!" she screamed, no fear in her voice. From somewhere in the darkness came a growling voice. "I don't want your fucking baby, bitch. I want you." When she rolled over, she found me staring at her, wide-eyed, unblinking. We tried reaching out to churches, told people what was happening. Most of them didn't help. They criticized us for the way we dressed and suggested we were inviting demons into our lives because of our appearance. Nobody offered answers. Nobody tried to help. Then, everything stopped. For a while, at least. We moved. Life settled down. Megan became pregnant again. Our daughter was born. For a brief second, things felt normal. Then it started all over again. One day, Megan was cleaning and she turned around, nearly jumped out of her own skin. Standing in the room was a tall young man, his skin powder white, his eyes the brightest blue she had ever seen. Neither of them moved, just stared at each other. Trying to act normal, she turned and walked down the hallway. When she looked back, he had vanished. She said she knew instinctively that whatever she had seen wasn't human. On another occasion, we were taking pictures and recording videos when small glowing orbs began appearing on camera. We couldn't see them with the naked eye, only through the lens. We later learned people call them ghost orbs, signs of paranormal activity. We'd hear footsteps racing through the halls while the children slept. At the time, we thought those things were terrifying. Compared to what came next, they were nothing. The activity didn't stop. If anything, it became more personal. Megan started acting afraid of me. At first, it was subtle. I'd catch her flinching whenever I walked into a room too quickly. If I reached toward her unexpectedly, she'd tense up like she was bracing for a hit. Couldn't understand it. I never laid a hand on her. For the longest time, she refused to tell me what was wrong. Then one day, after watching her recoil from me yet again, I finally got upset. "Do you really think that low of me?" I asked. "Why do you keep doing that?" Her eyes filled with tears immediately. She looked away. Then she started crying. "Because I keep having nightmares about you." I sat down beside her. "What kind of nightmares?" "They feel real." She wiped her eyes. "In them, you're beating me." My stomach dropped. I wrapped my arms around her. I'm so sorry." She took a shaky breath. "I get worse every night. Last night you picked me up and you slammed me onto my back." Her voice trembled. I felt my back break. I pulled back and looked her in the eyes. "Do you honestly think I would ever do that to you?" Without saying a word, she lifted up the back of her shirt. A massive bruise stretched across her back. Dark, almost black. I felt so sick. "Oh my God!" The bruise looked exactly like the kind of injury somebody would get from a violent impact. I wanted to take her to the hospital immediately. She refused. "They'll think I'm covering for you," she said. "They'll think you did it." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. By that point, it felt like it was simply our life now. Fear. Confusion. Questions nobody could answer. One day, Megan told me something that unsettles me when I think about it to this day. I was standing in the kitchen cooking dinner. She was sitting nearby. According to her, a large transparent orb, like a bubble, floated through the room and shot directly into my body. The moment it touched me, my eyes rolled in the back of my head. I began drooling. I just stood there, completely unresponsive. She rushed over and started shaking me, calling my name, screaming at me. Nothing worked. Then the smoke alarm went off. Food started burning. Suddenly, I snapped back into it. I blinked. The first thing I saw was smoke. Second was Megan standing in front of me, crying hysterically. "What the fuck?" I shouted. "What happened?" I rushed to turn off the stove and move the pans. "You looked like you were having an aneurysm," she cried, throwing her arms around me. To me, it felt like no time had passed at all. One second I was cooking. The next, the food was burning. There was nothing in between. The missing time became more frequent after that. Sometimes I'd lose minutes, sometimes hours. Entire chunks of my day vanished without explanation. Megan told me there were occasions she'd find me sitting alone, making low growling noises, staring off into space. I had no memory of any of it. Stress became unbearable. The constant arguments. Eventually it destroyed us. We split up. For so long, I blamed myself. Maybe I was just losing my mind. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe everything happening around us could somehow be traced back to me. Being away from Megan and the kids was torture. Every day felt wrong, empty. Years passed. Strangely enough, neither of us experienced any activity during that time. No nightmares, no shadowy figures, nothing. Eventually we started talking again. Then we started spending time together. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt what we'd lost. Before long, we were a family again. The kids were ecstatic. For the first time in years, life felt normal. For a while, it actually was. Things were good. Really good. Then the children started seeing things. One night, Emery told us she'd seen a man standing outside her bedroom window. His skin powder white. His smile stretched unnaturally wide. His teeth looked like razor blades. He stood there staring at her through the glass, smiling. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. I wasn't about to let my children go through what me and Megan had endured. Not if there was anything I could do about it. So we started searching for help. This time we looked online. We eventually found a deliverance ministry called Antidote. They agreed to meet with us. We told them everything. From the Hat Man in Florida to the thing in the trailer, the faceless man who demanded our son, and the pale figure standing outside Emery's window. They listened carefully. When we finished, they exchanged looks. Then they told us something we'd never heard before. Whatever was attached to us wasn't just attached to me. It was attached to both of us. Together. They were also the first people to identify what they believed it was. An incubus. A malevolent spirit said to attack its victims during sleep, and according to countless accounts throughout history, it would assault women in that way. For the first time in years, someone wasn't dismissing us. Someone was actually listening. Antidote consisted of two people, Gary and Karen Stein. They were some of the kindest people we'd met throughout our entire ordeal. There was no judgment, no criticism, no lectures about how we dressed. They just listened. After hearing everything we'd experienced, they explained what they believed needed to happen. They said they would pray over us and place their hands on us while asking God to break whatever hold this thing had over our lives. But before they agreed to proceed, Gary sat down across from us and spoke plainly. If you don't surrender your lives to Christ, he said, it'll come back. The room fell silent. When it comes back, it'll be worse. Much worse. Both Megan and I had grown up in church. The problem was that church had always felt forced on us. It wasn't something we'd chosen. It wasn't something we'd been made. It was something we'd been made to do. Gary understood that, so did Karen. But they stressed something important. If the Holy Spirit wasn't present in our lives, then all of this would be temporary. Whatever happened that night wouldn't last. And it had to be genuine. Real faith. Eventually, Gary looked at us. Are you ready? Megan and I exchanged a glance. Then we nodded. Gary placed a hand on me. Karen one on Megan. And then they began to pray. Almost immediately, something changed. Something got angry. The last thing I remember was hearing Gary pray, and everything went black. When I came to, it was all over. The room looked like a battlefield. Megan sat on the floor with Karen. Both of them were in tears. Both covered in scratches, blood stains on their arms. Gary was in the bathroom vomiting. For several seconds, I just sat there trying to make sense of what was going on. Nothing looked real. When Gary finally came back in the room, I stared at him. "What the fuck happened, Gary?" He sat down heavily and then he told me. According to him, the moment that they began praying, my entire body seized up. A few minutes later, I was writhing on the floor. Then I started convulsing. My eyes rolled into the back of my head. I began snarling, growling, thrashing violently. Gary said he took everything he had to keep his hands on me. While Karen continued praying for Megan, neither of them stopped. Not even when things got worse. According to Gary, Megan was screaming in agony. Not ordinary screaming, but the kind of screaming that sounds like somebody's being torn apart. Still, Karen kept praying. The objects started moving. Items flew from the shelves. Things crashed onto the floor. Lights started flickering, as though a massive surge of power had struck the house. Then one of the light bulbs burst. Glass shattered across the room. Still they prayed. The atmosphere became suffocating. Gary said I suddenly started speaking, but not English, not anything he recognized. A language he nor Karen still have no idea what it was. Then the scratches started. First on me, then Karen, then Megan. Deep red lines carved themselves across our skin, as though invisible claws were raking through the room. Whatever this thing was, it did not want to leave. Hours passed, prayers continued. Gary and Karen refused to stop. Eventually something changed. The pressure broke. The room grew quiet. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was peace. Not the temporary calm we'd experienced before. Something final. After Gary finished telling me what had happened, I sat in silence trying to process it all. And I looked him in the eyes. I want to give my life to the Holy Spirit. I want to invite the Holy Spirit into my life. A smile grew across Gary's face. Without hesitation, he sat down beside me and began to pray. I prayed with him. I know some people reading this are probably rolling their eyes right now. Maybe you're convinced there's a rational explanation for everything I've described. Maybe you think stress, trauma, sleep deprivation, even mental illness can explain it. You're entitled to that opinion. I wouldn't blame you. All I can do is tell you what happened. I know what I went through. I know what happened that night. For years, our lives were filled with fear. Constant torment. Then after that night, it stopped completely. For the first time in years, there was peace. Real peace. You can believe whatever you want about demons, but I can tell you this. They're real. They want us dead. They want nothing more than to keep you separated from Yah. The only thing that freed us was Christ. We've been free ever since.